Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We're so excited to have you here today for the official kickoff of our second annual Film Fest. And so we are kicking off the storytelling collection piece of the Film Fest, and we're so excited to get those amazing, impactful stories from you. And we're also super excited to have Jarami and Erick with us today from Bond Studios to just kind of give us a place where we feel comfortable and ready to share our stories. Can be a little bit intimidating sometimes to do video projects. And so they're here to walk us through that and demystify that whole process. So my name is Liz, and I'm going to share just a couple quick housekeeping items for you before we dive right in. So first, the format for this webinar today is going to be a little bit different than what we typically do. We're going to actually break in the middle to do Q&A with the audience. So start getting your questions ready, and we'll prompt you when we're ready for audience Q&A, and you can go ahead and just add those questions to the chat. And then second, I just want to let folks know that this webinar is being recorded, so you will have an opportunity to share it with your networks afterward. So let's get right into it. And I am going to hand things over to my colleague, Virginia Brown. She is our Director of Membership at NCBA CLUSA, and she's here to sort of frame today's conversation. So Virginia, take it away.
Thank you, Liz. Yes, thanks everyone for being here today. We are, as Liz said, super excited to launch our second annual Film Fest, which will happen at our Impact Conference later this year in October. And to get to that place, we have our video storytelling collection campaign, which is what we're launching today. And just a quick background, this is something that we started last year in celebration of the International Year of Cooperatives, right? A lot of times co-ops don't necessarily do a great job of telling our stories and sharing the tremendous impact that we have on our members and in our communities. And we really wanted to just amplify those stories through a video storytelling campaign, which, as last year progressed, ended up turning into this film fest that we had at our Impact Conference in October. It was a ton of fun. We got 42 submissions across three categories: short form, long form, and social media videos. And we gave out awards to the top video in each of those categories, had a great conversation. And so we decided we're going to do it bigger and better this year. And so this is the official launch. And so we figured what better way to launch than to talk with some experts in film and production. And so we have today Jarami Bond, who is the founder and executive producer of Bond Studio, Erick Salazar, who's the creative director. And so Bond Studio is who produced the long form winner of our inaugural Film Fest. And so we figured let's have a conversation with them. They can give us their pro tips and their perspective on video storytelling for co-ops and how we can do that more effectively. And so to kind of lead that conversation, I will hand it over to Kiera McGowan, who is our member engagement and data analyst at NCBA. And so, Kiera, take it away. And
Thanks.
and just to say, just to drop, we've got a really exciting announcement about the Film Fest that we're going to save for closing at the end. And yes, just wanted to mention that too. So, Kira.
Thanks, Virginia. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay. And welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. As Virginia said, my name is Kiera McGowan. I am the member engagement and data analyst here at National Cooperative Business Association. And I'm really looking forward to having this conversation with Jarami and Erick as we can give you some tips and some additional information on really how to tell your story because cooperatives across the land, we all have really great stories, but I'm sure that all of us can have some difficult opportunities. It's difficult to tell your story, and then also just kind of learning the best ways to really tell your story. So I'm looking forward to having this conversation. I'd like to first start with Jarami. First, kind of tell us a little bit of your background, how you got into this creative field, and also tell us a little bit more about Bond Studio and your connection to telling cooperative stories through video.
Awesome. Thank you, Kiara, and Virginia, Liz. Grateful to be here. I'm really excited for this conversation and just want to shout you all out for creating space to talk about storytelling and how we can dig deep into our communities and tell stories that drive impact. So, really, really hyped for today. As far as my background, I actually started off in a completely different space. I spent about 7 years in the corporate sustainability space. And through that work, discovered very early on how human-centric stories, how powerful they are, and the potential that they have to shift hearts and minds toward impact. I was actually living in the Bay Area toward the end of my time in the corporate sustainability space and was so blown away by how beautiful the mountains and the oceans were out there. I actually grew up on the East Coast where things are a little bit more flat, and I had to buy my first camera. I also bought a drone, and so creativity for me started really as a side passion. Eventually, that turned into a side hustle, and during the pandemic, I wanted to bring together my heart for community, for impact, my budding passion around creativity, and turn that into a new career journey. And so, in that moment that I made that transition, I knew that I did not have film school experience. I was okay with the camera, but not incredible. But luckily, I was surrounded by friends and collaborators who had gone to film school, and who had expertise in the realms of directing and producing. And we began surrounding these projects bit by bit. And over the past 5 years, we've grown to where we are today. And so, Bond Studio, we are a film production company that works with mission-driven organizations. This includes cooperatives, CDFIs, impact-focused banks, community nonprofits, and so forth. We work coast to coast and up into Canada, developing everything from short social spots all the way up to long-form documentaries. And our mission is to really do two main things. One, I mentioned earlier, shift hearts and minds toward impact through showing stories that evoke emotion and rally people toward action. But we also create videos that solve problems. And so we want to make sure that our what we produce is strategically aligned with the marketing, communications, fundraising, sales goals that the cooperatives or CDFIs that we work with have. And so we're looking at a few different levers whenever we take on a creative project. And yeah, we actually just wrapped up a project recently with a cooperative called Shared Capital Cooperative out of Minneapolis. We'll talk a little bit later about some of the lessons that we peeled from that. But yeah, that's who Bond Studio is, and really excited that Erick is with us as well. Erick and I have been working for Bond Studio from the beginning. A lot of the work that you see in our portfolio is a product of me producing and Erick directing. So I'm super excited for you to be here as well, Erick.
Hey,
Yeah.
thanks so much.
Thank you for that. A really quick follow-up question, Jarami. The way you said, and then I'll talk to Eric about what he does too. But I wanted to know, what was your first camera?
My first camera was a Canon EOS Rebel T6.
Okay, yeah, I have that camera too.
Okay,
I feel
okay.
like that's a lot of people's first cameras. So yeah,
Yep,
maybe we
yep.
could a little bit later we could probably talk about like some best practices as it relates to like cameras if people want to spend some money on cameras or like what they have available probably in their hand to use that as well. So Eric, I'm gonna kick it over to you if you don't mind us telling kind of like your background, what you are the creative director of Bond Studios, and just letting us know how you got there, and then also what was your first camera.
So I'll start with the camera question first. So Canon T3i. was my first one. And then I moved to Sony, and now I'm thinking about going back to Canon, but we'll see what happens. I have too
Okay.
much Sony
Canon,
gear at this
yeah.
point.
We'll have to see what
Uh,
everyone's opinions are on like the camera brands too.
yeah, I definitely have a lot of opinions too. So we could spend like hours on talking about that for sure, which I would be happy to. But and anyway, hey everybody, thanks for having me on. I'm Erick Salazar. I'm a commercial director, creative director, and photographer born and based in the Bay Area. And I focus mainly on, yeah, commercials and documentary style storytelling, especially for brands and organizations. A lot of my work is centered around telling human story in a way that feels like honest and emotionally grounded, and finding ways to translate that into something that still works within a commercial and organizational context. And I think what brought me into this line of work is I always had like I think since I was like really young, I always loved going to the movies, and I loved that when you watched a movie or watched a video, looked at a photograph, like there was just this emotional resonance that you shared with people, and it really brought people together. So I think that's what really kind of locked me in. A little funny side story is that I watched the movie Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire. Was like Spider-Man 1. He was a photographer and he was Spider-Man. So when I was young, I was like, I'm committing to both. I got to be Spider-Man and a photographer. But obviously, I couldn't be one of those. So I ended up being a photographer and going into directing, and the rest is history.
I think there's still hope for you to be Spider-Man.
You know, I'm looking for the spider.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And so I wanted to start really quick too about there are people in our audience who may not know kind of like the technical aspects, right, of telling a story. Some of us are good at being able to kind of like point and shoot and then have people tell the stories, kind of do things off the head. But from a since you all both have a more professional background, there is kind of like some technical things that can be helpful in order to be prepared and then produce a quality video. And Erick, I know you have a simple framework for that, for a storytelling project that our audience could benefit from. Do you mind walking us through that?
Yeah, sure. So I think there was a book I read in college that actually helped me the most, and it was for a screenwriting course. And the book was called Screenwriting for Neurotics. It's not a very well-known book, I don't think, but I hope it becomes one. Because it helped me the most out of like even some of the more compared to some of the more popular ones. And the framework there, I'm gonna share like the framework that helps guide me when I'm writing like narrative and commercial stuff, and then I'm gonna share a framework that's a little bit more attuned to like organizational context. So that first framework that I typically use when I write like short films or anything like that is it starts with the hero first. Like you have to define who the hero is, and it doesn't always have to be, in the realm of narrative work, it doesn't have to be technically a good person. It could be anti-heroes and all that stuff, but we don't have to get so technical. In this case, let's keep it to the hero, right? Somebody that's trying to do good and trying to achieve a goal. The goal is the second thing. So we have the hero and the goal. And it's like, what are they trying to achieve? And then why are they trying to achieve it, right? Then there's the central conflict. The central conflict is what is pulling them away from like attaining that goal. And then the central question is, will they be able to get over the conflict, the obstacle to attain that goal? So there's four there. It's the hero, the goal, the central question, central conflict. When you kind of like attune that to more organizational context, it's it's the same thing, but you want to think about like, obviously how your organization helped this person, but also keep that hero, the person, the small business owner, the individual as the hero, because it is their lives, it is what's going to connect to grander audiences the most, right? So first, what I want to start with on this next framework is number one. The number one rule I think that a lot of organizations um, should follow is show, don't tell. Um, it's one of the biggest rules I follow. Uh, People don't want to be told what to feel. They want to actually feel it for themselves. So that's why you want to like attune something. Like you want to focus on a person who's going through it and showing that, not just saying this, person A went through this and this is how they got out of it. No, show them the story. Like tell them, like do some reenactments, follow them like day in a life, like really like be there with them so then people could actually feel for this person. And so that leads naturally to the next part. It's like show a real person, right? Instead of like starting with your organization or your mission, start with someone your audience can connect with, someone they can see themselves in. Because the truth is, people connect with people way more than they connect with like ideas or institutions. So even if you're representing a bigger mission, grounding it in one person makes it feel real and specific. The next part is the real challenge. So every story needs some kind of tension, something that like a person is going through. As I said, this is kind of like echoing what I said with the original, the individual framework that I typically use. Um, and so the challenge doesn't have to be dramatic, but if you don't have a challenge, your video becomes more of a highlight reel or like a promotional video. So it kind of falls into the um the telling versus the showing, right? So you want to make sure that there's a challenge there and that you get to follow this person and see how they were able to, well, what they struggled with and how they were able to overcome. And then lastly, I think it's like showing real moments. So like you want to film people in their natural like habitat. Like if they're, again, a small business owner that, let's just say they own like a bike shop or something. You want to show them how they live there, how they interact with customers. Who are they outside of the business too? Like you want to show them with their family, maybe show some of their roots, their backgrounds. Even like the small things, like little pauses, glances, or like how someone interacts. Those moments carry a lot of emotion more than just words do. And so just one more thing I wanted to add is like matching the execution to the story. Whether you're creating like quick social content, like something more polished or like a longer form piece, the core idea stays the same. Where things start to change the level of execution. So for more everyday content, you can honestly shoot something strong on modern day phones. I mean, they shoot 4K. They shoot pretty incredibly. Just like, whenever you have time, like try to learn like a little bit of composition techniques. Like rule of thirds is the main one that people like to go for, and I still use it all the time to this day. If not, that's probably like the only thing that I use. That's what helps me. But yeah, composition, I think lighting as well. Um, and making sure that you capture strong audio is a must. So definitely invent an audio gear. Like the phones could shoot a lot, but if you have shoddy audio, then it's like, audio I think is like half of the battle. So definitely get something a good lavalier mic that you could find online. There's tons that you could find for relatively inexpensive. Um, but like if you're trying to tell a more elevated story with like more depth and intention, that's where it's worth investing more into production. Like so that's when you could bring in a team. Obviously you could there's multiple ways of doing it, but it's bringing in a production team always helps as well. But it is less about the gear itself and it's more about matching the level of execution to the kind of story you want to tell. So it's not really, I guess, closing thoughts would be like, it's not really about having the best camera. It's about knowing when your story deserves more and knowing how to follow um, like a good framework that can captivate audiences that people can resonate with. Um, and yeah, just not being too, I guess, self promoting, but being more for the people when you tell these stories.
Yeah, thank you for that great explanation. And Jamari, I know you were nodding, so would love to open the floor for you to add your insights as well.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you, Kiara. I mean, so many gems, Eric, so many gems. And I think piggybacking off of some of what Eric shared, I think that a lot of times when we're in the field and we're working with co-ops and also just mission-driven organizations, there is a level of complexity to the cooperative structure, governance, even shared ownership. And so along the lines of what Eric shared, when it comes to showing and not telling, I think that leading with member stories and showing transformation first before explaining the structure, I think can help videos resonate quicker and more deeply. I think the stories that are the most powerful are the stories in which we see ourselves or somebody that we love, care about, appreciate. And so leading with that human component and then finding strategic ways to weave in the capacity building elements that help people understand on a more structural or technical level how a cooperative operates. And also perhaps looking at different assets to accomplish different goals. One thing that we run into often is, clients that are super driven and super passionate and have a lot of desires to speak to different audiences and solve for different things in one video. But perhaps there's a world where there's a series produced that's focused on demystifying what a co-op is, helping build capacity within community about what they are, how they operate, and then a separate series that focuses on highlighting impact stories. So, not trying to tackle every single strategy within one video.
Mhm.
Another thing that I hear often is, we're doing so much great work, but nobody knows about it. And I'm kind of shy about telling the story. And, from the work that we've seen on the ground, I mean, cooperatives are, they are the anchors of so many communities, the quiet anchors at that. There's so many, businesses that we interact with on a daily basis that many people might not realize are cooperatively owned. And so, the cooperative movement provides a level of community resilience and sustainability that the world needs more of. And so I always encourage cooperatives to just tell your story. Like it's okay. It's okay. And when you lean into Erick's advice of centering the person, centering the human, centering the community first, you avoid that. You avoid being received in more of a performative nature when you're telling that community impact story. And so that's another thing I think. One thing that I hear often too is that, we don't have the budget or the capacity. And so many members, so many owners within cooperatives are wearing several different hats, and can sometimes have a hard time finding the space and the margin to invest in video production. And so, I would say, on one hand, leaning into a partner, whether it's a film production company like a Bond Studio or a local studio that's a little bit more nimble and able to work at different scales, to kind of come alongside and serve as an extension of your team. And then, Eric also mentioned that iPhones are incredible. They can do so much more than even just 3 to 5 years ago. And so I think that, not allowing budget to be a barrier to bringing together community and extract and really kind of harvesting with empathy and care stories that will move people toward action. And then lastly, this is the last thing I'll share, pre-production. So one thing that I really appreciate about me and Eric's working style over the past several years is the space that we create for subjects to really bring us into the humanity of their work. Um, Bringing people under the hood of your business to film, sitting in that interview seat as a member can be a stressful or vulnerable experience. Bringing your triumphs and your challenges to that interview room, and so creating space, building relationship with the people that you're featuring before that video, so that once you're on set, there's a level of rapport and comfort and trust that's established. And because of the time spent in pre-production learning about their story, you're not just showing up and kind of figuring it out on the spot. You're able to create a production plan that allows you to maximize that time, whether it's you and your iPhone or your Canon Rebel T6 on set, or if it's a film production company you've hired. More prep time on the front end helps cultivate relationship and the level of preparedness needed to really honor that story and steward the opportunity to tell it. So yeah, those are just a few thoughts.
Yeah, thank you for that. There is a question from the audience that I wanted to get to because it talks about iPhone. So it says, this is from Raquel. What simple gear would you recommend for someone making impactful, human-centered social media videos to level up the production quality while using a smartphone? So, because we've been having like some brief conversations about having smartphones that could do incredible work, would love to kind of ease into answering that question to give some pro tips, and then also we could talk a little bit more about some more technical things that Erick had touched on briefly as well. And then if anyone else has any questions, please feel free to put it in the chat.
For sure, for sure. So I think it's a good question. I think you'll always need like a little bit of gear for sure. Like it makes it easier. The more gear you have, it does make it a little bit easier. I always recommend at least having a tripod and then at least one light with a sort of softbox on it. And they have the fancier, more expensive lights, which are typically like the apertures. But there's also lights like Godox, or even honestly when I was starting and I was like kind of like one man banding it. I would buy the most inexpensive lights that I could find on Amazon. And then I would just kind of work with that. But like I still have some of the old panel lights that I first bought ever. And then I would make some makeshift kind of gear to be able to like allow me to make what I wanted. But I think, yeah, Godox is a pretty good brand. If you find honestly less expensive alternatives, like there's nothing wrong with that. It gets the job done. It's a light. Just make sure it has like some sort of diffusion, which is like a softbox on it. And then I think a tripod for your phone would be good too, just to keep it steady. And then, like I said, audio is something to not skimp out on. I feel like you should definitely invest. And like they have really good, I believe the brand is Rode, and I'm not sponsored by any of these people, by the way. I'm just like throwing these things at you. But like, Rode mics are really good. They got these lavalier mics that work really well with iPhones. Um, and I would say, yeah, I think that's like kind of the main of it. And that's specifically, I guess, for interviews. If you want to make something that's a little bit more elevated when you're filming these things, try to kind of, because you want to be cognizant of your time as well, and the client's time, the subject's time. So I think like scheduling this is why pre-production is important, but scheduling this in a way where you do the interview on the same day that an event is happening that's like connected to what the subject is talking about, maybe, or so on and so forth. Just try to connect these things within a day or two, and you could totally do a lot. A YouTube channel I would recommend. Shout out Sean Tucker. It's Sean Tuck. He's a photographer in London, but he probably helped me the most when it came to learning light and composition. And he shares things in a way that's like philosophical and also like really grounded and practical and technical as well. So I would I could actually link it here in a second as well. But I think those would be my current tips for now. Jerome, do you have anything to add? Do you think anything I missed?
No, no, you didn't miss anything. I mean, I think you hit on sound in the previous question. They always say that a video with amazing sound and decent picture is always going to be more resonant than a video with 8K footage but bad audio. And so I dropped a link to the mic that Eric was referring to. So I don't have anything else technical to add, but I actually have a question for you, Eric. Um, can you briefly explain why it's important to invest in like a kind of starter kit light package? Like, what does light add to the interview room if you're just, you're pulling your iPhone in, you're pulling in your Canon, and you're kind of going to town? Like, could you tell us about that?
Yeah, I wish I would have brought up some like comparisons, because it does quite a lot. It doesn't seem like it does, just like when we're talking about it, but I think it adds a sort of, for lack of a better word, I guess, a drama, but then also it kind of like centers your subject in the middle of the frame. Like lighting is used to shape um, what you're centering, essentially, right? Um, so I would say it would be that, and it just makes it more visually interesting. I wish we had a cinematographer here, because they could speak a lot more to light than I could as the director. Cinematographers are like people that essentially like choose, like they work with directors, and they help like talk about like, oh, what kind of look. They essentially make the director's vision come to life, whether that be like talking about what kind of camera to use, lenses, and lighting choices, uh, connecting that to the story. So if your story is a little bit more, also thinking about your story is the main thing with lighting. So this is a great question, Rami. So you don't want to make something over dramatized if the story is like more, lighthearted and happy. Like it would be weird to have, interview that's like super moody and dark. It's like one light in the back and it's, Netflix documentary, like super dark. So you want to keep things like that in mind. If it is a little bit more dramatic, sure, but you don't want to make it seem like it's not fitting the feeling, I think. So listening to the feeling, and I would say also when you're interviewing, cut off the house lights, any lights that are up overhead, please cut those off because those will they're different like colors and it just makes things not look as good. That's what I would say.
Yeah, no one likes the evil overhead light.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Thank you
Exactly.
for that. Those are really great information. And it kind of leads into this next question, just in terms of like, what else are the most important things we need to consider to effectively showcase our impact using video? And then what are some common challenges and how we can overcome them? I feel like past few minutes we touched on them a little bit, but definitely giving space for you to elaborate a little bit more. And then also as you're answering the questions, our audience can chime in with some feedback or some additional questions as well.
I'm gonna go ahead and say I think one of the things that a lot of production companies, I think every production company runs into this for every set. I don't think there's ever been a perfect set ever. You kind of just roll with the punches on a lot of things. You expect the unexpected to happen, just have a plan B, C, and D ready and available. And also, I think yeah, just like understanding that it happens. It happens all the time. Like, how do you flow? Jerome and I were on a project about a month ago, and like things went wrong. And I think we've worked with each other for like 5 years at this point. And earlier on, we were like, oh no, like it's not going to plan. What do we do? But now, literally a month ago, we looked at each other and we're like, well, I guess we'll just like figure it out and see what else we could shoot. So I think just remaining like calm is a big thing. But yeah, one of the main challenges is always time. So try to give yourself a lot of time, more than you think you'll need. I think a rule of thumb that we use for interview setups when we're setting up with our professional camera gear and lighting packages and all that, we usually give ourselves about an hour and a half to 2 hours. Might be a little different with if you're using like iPhones and like a couple of lights, but if you are like soloing it too, I would still give yourself like at least an hour. Even then, that makes me nervous. I'd say an hour and 15. Like just have a lot of time because you don't know what you're going to run into. You might find that like you chose a room or the subject chose a room that doesn't have outlets. So like, what are you going to do? Now you have to find another place to go film. So anything can happen. And I think just being early having enough time, giving yourself that space is always it's really critical.
Yeah, that's really good, Eric. Eric alluded to our pre-production process in which we literally map every minute of production because, when our clients hire us, we become stewards not only of their stories, but of their budgets, and we want to maximize as much creative output as we can from, the day or the week that we're on set. And so because every minute is mapped, and this is kind of like my scope. Like when a director and producer are working together, the producer kind of serves as a liaison between client and crew. They understand how to speak the strategic Marcom strategies of the client, but also understand how to meet the needs of their crew to accomplish that. And so there's times where, as a producer, a very type A producer, like when going back to the project that Eric referred to, one of our subjects actually showed up like 2 hours late. And so that pushed so many different things. And so ensuring that, like Eric said, always having the backup plan for the backup plan, and having conversations with the client as well about what those could potentially be, so that they can also be prepared to align with you very quickly when those pivots happen. Another thing in pre-production that has been really, really helpful for us is location scouting. Sometimes you show up to a studio for an interview and it might be smaller than you anticipated. Maybe, I mean, we've had projects where, and this is in the early days when we didn't necessarily scout on every shoot when we arrive, and there's train tracks adjacent to the studio. And so every 5 minutes, you have to pause your interview, and that could cause your schedule to get delayed as well. So whether you're planning to film at a storefront or at a kind of an isolated studio, just taking a few minutes, even if you're not in the same city, even leaning into a virtual scout where maybe the location manager can take you on a FaceTime tour through the space just so that you can get familiar with all of its elements. Another aspect of that, loading in and loading out. There's been times where I've arrived to a studio and the process of working with security or working with whoever manages the loading dock, who might be in building D, but we're shooting in building A, like little things like that, having them figured out on the front end, they save 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, maybe even hours. And while some of those time windows on the shorter end could feel negligible, a 10 minutes saved could give your interviewee a little bit extra time to elaborate on a question on the other side of the day. So making sure that as much pre-work happens beforehand as possible. And then one last thing I'll say is maximizing the number of creative mediums that you're leaning into. So a lot of times clients will or will recommend to clients that, hey, um, while we're on set and your clients or the subjects are available and they've had their schedules blocked off for this, let's bring in a BTS photographer to capture the story of the day so that you could leverage those assets on social, across newsletters, so on and so forth. There are projects that have photographic scopes that do require their own unique production day, where maybe day one is video and day two is photo. But as long as those two departments don't clash, I think bringing in camera is a really great way to maximize that investment and the time that your subjects are taking to be available for that shoot. So yeah, those are just a couple additions.
Thank you for that. We have two more questions from the audience that, if y'all don't mind answering pretty quickly so that we can continue and stay on track with time. But because it's a great conversation, so we're learning a lot and I really appreciate it. So the first one is from Daniela, and she says, I typically have a hard time choosing background audio. I feel like it can dramatically change the mood. Any tips on selecting background audio slash music?
Yeah, so yeah, this could be kind of like the hard part. It takes a long time to kind of like curate and like find things that you like, especially with music. Especially if you're as picky as me. I think I tend to be very picky, so I'll be like on art list or whatever for like days. I'll just have to section out times because I know I'm not going to find it like immediately, and then I'll save things that I kind of like. Um, yeah, it's kind of tough. I mean, you definitely want to go with what the tonality of the story is, but you know, because you're like kind of picking and choosing music, you won't always find something that is exact. Sometimes what I'll do, I mean, as a creative director, part of my job is to always be taking in inspiration. And there's a famous quote, I believe, by Picasso that's great artists steal, and it's not supposed to be meant like it's not meant to be taken literal. It's supposed to be more of like, great artists get like are inspired by other artists. So I think if you're able to find like if you're having trouble with a project, like look up another project that someone else has done and see how they did it. Like what kind of music did they use? How did they transition from one song to the next? Um, and then that'll kind of help you continuously get inspired for what you're creating. Um, I hope that kind of answers your question. I know like a lot of it honestly is just like searching as like it does really suck to search for music. Like I'm a level with you on that. So it takes time, but anytime you have the time to be like looking through those things when you have off time, just save things in folders. If you're on Instagram, I have a ton of saved folders for different things like photography inspiration, music inspiration, commercial inspiration. Like always, whenever you see something interesting, save it because you never know when you're going to need it in the future.
Yeah, that's really good. Jamari, I saw that you added some links there as well. Thank you for that. Is there anything you wanted to add before we go to the next question really quick?
Yeah, I think Eric, yeah, he covered it. So let's roll to the next one.
All right, thank you. So this next one says, when shooting in our store during business hours, we found it hard to deal with customers who didn't want to be on camera and had to work around people, so it felt a little more clunky. Any suggestions on how to make that feel more candid slash natural?
Hmm.
Yeah, we run into this one a lot.
It could be
So
awkward.
I'm curious to hear what Eric's going to say. Because Eric's a producer too, so we have like yeah, lots of perspectives. So one thing that we've done in the past in circumstances where we know that the flow of traffic is going to impact the ability for us to shoot the B-roll we need. And we always secure or secure media releases for anybody who's filmed. We get that permission beforehand. And let's just say we're in a grocery store and there's no way to have dialogues with, dozens or maybe hundreds of people that are moving in and out of a space in a short period of time. Sometimes we offer the opportunity to come after or before business hours, and bring in people who can basically act as customers. I mean, if you're working on a larger production, paying talent, paying models to actually play those roles is leaned into, but the majority of Bond Studios work is so like human and grounded, like we're working with real people, real stories. And so there's been times where, we've brought people in, or the client or the subject has brought people in to kind of play those roles so that we have more freedom to roam. So I'm just gonna toss that in there, but I'm curious to hear what you're thinking too, Eric. Oh, you're still muted. Yeah, yeah.
My fault. I think it's about trying to choose, yeah, I guess pre-planning that ahead as much as you can, just trying to choose like a room or like a corner of the place where you can film that won't be too disruptive. I mean, at a certain point, you're gonna run into sound anyway. Sometimes you're just kind of like constricted to that. So th it is what it is on that end of things. But sometimes like you want to think about like you want to think about maybe like, do you do an interview that's on camera? Do you do it like maybe in a car as if like when they're driving to work per se, or like when they're just parked, which is a lot more safe. Um, or do you like film them at home or something? Like sometimes you can't film in the exact spots that you want. And I think you just have to, again, going back to like rolling with the punches, you kind of just have to figure something different out. But again, have those plan B, C's, D's, and so on. I guess that would kind of be the best answer I think I could give you.
Yeah, thank you for that. And so now what we're going to do is we are going to transition over to watch two videos from our inaugural film festival last year. And the first one is going to be from the New Orleans Firemen's Federal Credit Union called Putting People First to Build Generational Wealth. And this was produced by Bond Studios. And it's also the last official preview of this video. So we're getting exclusive watch. It'll be launched later in this week as part of a 4 case study series on inclusive banking. So I believe, Liz, you'll be pulling that up. So I will kick that over to you.
Yeah, thanks. Can you all see that?
I see the screen. We can see your desktop too.
Oh, that's nice.
Good. The,
Yeah,
the icons on the screen.
and that's why it wouldn't play. Okay, how about now?
Okay. I can see the full thing now. If anyone can't see anything, please put that in the chat, but I can see the full one.
Great. And for some reason, it's not playing. Okay. I'm gonna figure out what's on with this one. Let's actually do sorry for the mix up here. Let's do Green Star first,
Okay.
and then we can come back
Okay.
to New Orleans Firemen's Credit Union because I'm not sure um, why that
Okay,
appears.
cool. So, with some background for Green Star, this wasn't a winner of our inaugural film fest last year, but it was a really great opportunity. It's a really great showcase of co-op members being interviewed, describing what cooperative means to them and their community, and then also how consumers can contribute to a better world through shopping at co-op. So, kind of like Jamari and Eric hinted at, like showing the hero of the story, maybe some challenges that have overcome it, and really just telling some additional background as well.
This is our 50-ish anniversary today. We've got a bunch of fantastic vendors here, local farms we work with, partners we work with, so community's all here and everyone's welcome. This is what Green Star is all about.
It's a gathering of people that share the same values. Green Star stands for cooperation, inclusiveness, valuing our community as well as the world that we're in.
Here, every member has exactly the same input. Employees have input, farmers have input. It's a much more locally sustainable organization. And when we say local, we can point you to where these folks are in our community on a map.
We met at Green Star over 40 years ago. We live more than an hour away, but we still come back here to shop because we love the way that Green Star operates and the way that they treat the employees.
I love the food, the selection of produce. I also like that they support local farmers. I love the atmosphere. I love the idea of a co-op.
We moved here in January of 1987 and joined the co-op immediately. And so if you do the math, that's 37 years, something like that. It's not just a grocery store. Green Star means all kinds of things to all kinds of people and really building a community with lots of activities and education beyond just buying your food.
I've lived in a lot of other places where it's hard to find good food and places to go where you feel good about where you're shopping, and Green Star makes that happen.
Cooperative principles matter. It's important for regular, ordinary citizens to understand that they have the power to act collectively and own things. Just that capacity to support our local farmers and agriculturalists means a tremendous amount to the community.
A co-op is a place where we create the world we want to see. Join us in the co-creation of that future we want for Ithaca. We're not just consumers, we're not at the bottom of the food chain. We can take the power and make the Ithaca we want together.
That's a great video. Jamari and Eric, please let us know your feedback on that. What are some things that worked in the video that could also translate into things that our members of the audience can do when they make videos as well?
Yeah, so Andrea actually commented on the first thing I was going to touch on. I think that the slow pans and the push-in shots were really, really beautiful. And this actually takes me back to the technical conversation we were having a few minutes ago about what is some of that like starter kit gear that you can lean into. And I know sometimes, if you're using your iPhone to capture motion, there might be a level of shakiness. I think iPhones have gotten better over time with somewhat of in-body stabilization, but there are gimbals that you can buy and mount your iPhone on top of, or gimbals. DJI is a brand that makes these that have cameras built into them. And essentially that allows you to, push into that display table, zoom in on that person, walk around and film without having to worry about that camera shake. And I think the producer of that video did a great job with that. And then also at the beginning, there was a throwback image, and we love incorporating archival media into our videos, particularly for co-ops and small businesses. We believe that showing the journey, showing the early days, the struggle days, the simple days, can help illuminate the story of growth and advancement and progression. And so I think it also brings a level of authenticity and groundedness to a video. I think that even bringing in, iPhone shot photos and videos, or even like old school VHS. It just brings a level of nostalgia that can kind of cut into the clean production and provide a little bit of balance. And so I love the fact that they included that photo from the beginning.
Yeah, and I loved, I think what stuck out to me was the diversity of perspective. Like we got to hear a lot of people and how like it felt very lived in, like we were actually there experiencing this event with everybody. So I thought that was really special. And that's always something that we try to do as well. Try to get as many perspectives as you can because it really makes it feel like it's like a real well-rounded piece, but like a well-rounded like world that you're building within this video. Like at this point, I want to visit that space as well for sure. Like it looked like a good time.
Yeah, it's a excuse me, it's a great example of show, don't tell, and like, what you get out of the cooperative. I can fall in
Hmm.
love, I can go get my grocery stores and like figure out where where the farms, the food is sourced from. So yeah, kind of really a great opportunity to show the neighborhood and the area in which they live. So next, are we ready for the New Orleans assignment?
Yes, I think
Okay.
I think it should work this time. Take two.
Tell us a little bit about New Orleans. What are the best things about the city?
I think the best things about this city are the culture, of course, the food, the resilience that people have based on the situations that they've experienced over the course of the past decades. But it has not been that prosperous for people of color. My name is James Hunter. I serve as the Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer for New Orleans Firemen's Federal Credit Union. There is a problem connected to race and wealth in Louisiana, and it goes back to the days of slavery, in which we had the transatlantic slave trade that came to New Orleans as a major port.
And so the history of the Old South has had a lasting influence on life in the southern states.
Those things laid a foundation for what we have today, which is a discrepancy in wealth. We love New Orleans, but people for 30 years have experienced nothing but generational poverty, having a mentality that they can only live in a certain radius or a certain zip code or have a certain amount of wealth. We see it consistently when we look at people who are trying to find a way to being a homeowner and are experiencing redlining. The kind of mindset that's needed for banks to make change involves having a servant leadership heart, understanding that it is expensive to be poor, but also at the same time be willing to say, what can we do to mitigate that? And when we find ways to bridge that gap and give people access to capital, it helps them change their financial narratives. New Orleans Firemen's Federal Credit Union started off in 1934 as firemen who wanted to pool their resources together to try to create loans and products for themselves to help when no one else would. We aim to serve the unbanked, underserved, and under-resourced. It's about people helping people. I think it's important to, as a credit union, meet people where they are. 70% of our staff is certified financial counselors, and we allow individuals to come in, tell us what's going on, and help them find a path that's right for them. We're trying to bridge that wealth divide by being creative, and first and foremost, going into the communities that need to be served and asking, what is it that you're missing? What is it that you need? Where banks run from, we run to. We're trying to give people that chance to build what we call generational wealth.
To me, legacy means leaving something behind for my family. Because when I think of legacy, I think of my family, my kids. My name is Chris Lanier. I work for Lanier Wildlife Solutions. 2 years after starting my company, I was trying to expand my family, had a baby on the way, needed more space. So we went house shopping. When working with some of the larger national banks, trying to get a home loan, it was just impossible. Even though we had the credit, had the finances, they told me I didn't have the years in business that I needed. I didn't have 5 or 6 years in business, even though the credit was there, the resources were there. So that's when I went to New Orleans Firemen's Federal Credit Union.
In our mortgage division, we have a department that looks at every loan and ask the question, what's the story?
New Orleans Farmers Federal Credit Union looked at everything that I had and said that, oh, you've got everything you need. You know, you've been in business 2 years. Your income is steady. We can take care of you. So within a week, we had everything done and we were building a home.
Credit unions have a more humanistic approach to everything they do.
They look at the smaller businesses, they look at the smaller people and provide what's needed.
I think that building better banks means let us work together to find ways to be creative and leverage our resources to help the greater humanity. Where people can come together and congregate and realize that if I struggle, we all struggle. And when we look at a community, we try to find ways to help each other. When all these things come together, you start to build equality. You start building equitable outcomes that are going to be for everyone and not just for a sole pocket. And to stand up as proud citizens and feel like they're part of the American dream. Everything we do, everything we try to achieve is based on trying to serve and help people bridge the gap of where they are to where they want to be. And I would love to imagine a world where banks could adopt that same philosophy.
Awesome. Such an incredible video. Great job, of course. You probably don't need me to tell you that. But just wanted to share as we continue to wrap up in our final minutes. And just, really quickly in 1 minute each, Jarami and Erick, please share with us what are your favorite aspects of that video, and maybe like just some additional information, some feedback on that as well.
Yeah, I'll dive in first. It's going to be hard to be concise with this one. This is one of my favorite videos that we produced. But I think one thing that I'm grateful for is the fact that we worked with local filmmakers, local editor, a local sound team, lighting team that understood the tapestry, the culture, the history of the region. When we take on projects across the country, we work with local teams that understand these elements and are able to bring that flavor, bring that sauce, that spirit to the work. And so one thing that I really appreciated about this piece is that it was so true to the region. And there's a level of just visual texture that I think really grounded such an inspiring story, and point of views from James Hunter at NOFQ that honestly I feel like serve as a beacon for the entire community finance space. And so just grateful for the team. Just got to shout out the team in New Orleans that Erick and I were able to work with on that one because it really helped just tell this story in a really authentic way.
Yeah, I think I just loved connecting with the people so much, and I feel like it helped to. I mean, going back to pre-production, we always do like pre-interviews, or we try to always do it if time permits, and like schedules align. But 95% of the time we'll do pre-interviews just to get to know the people a lot more. We always feel like that's really important. But yeah, I think we were like pretty well acquainted once we got there, and though it was a new crew too, um, it was just good times all around. I think it was a great time. Um, One of my favorite pieces for sure. I don't think I've actually seen the full piece in like a while, so getting to watch it again was like, oh wow, it's very, very nostalgic. Yeah, it just reminds you like why you're making these things, I think. But yeah, no.
Thank you. That's awesome. And of course, great video. And thank you all for joining us. We have one more special announcement, if you all don't mind, if all of our participants don't mind sticking around just one additional minute. But just want to say incredible conversation. Thank you so much, Jarami and Erick, for your insight, your tips, and just having this great conversation that will really help our cooperative members be able to take and utilize it so that they can share their stories. I'm now going to pass it to Virginia to close us out.
Thanks so much, Kira, for leading this conversation. And Jarami and Erick, thank you so much for your time today and sharing just so much great information with us that I think such like really practical tips that we can take back to our video storytelling work. And we hope that this does inspire many in the cooperative community to share your stories through video, whether it's, you know, hiring a production company and going big in a what this was a long form category video, or using your iPhone and bootstrapping it. And I mean, everyone watches social media reels and videos now, and so you can go that route too. That's also incredibly powerful. But we hope you'll decide to share your stories, and that you'll submit them to our video storytelling competition. And yeah, the exciting news is that for this year, as part of the sponsorship, we're able to provide cash prizes. So there will be a $2,000 prize for the winner of each of those three categories: the social media, the long form, and the short form videos. And I do just need to say thanks also to the Film Fest sponsors at our Impact Conference this year. Our premier sponsor is National Cooperative Grocers, and Principal Six Cooperative is a new sponsor this year for the Film Fest. Thank you, thank you. And we have another in-kind sponsor, DDC International, that's also a production company like Bond Studio. And so yeah, we're excited to see everyone's videos as they come in, and share them on our YouTube channel. We have playlists for all three of those categories, and so those videos that were submitted last year are posted there. And we'll continue to build that out as a resource for the entire cooperative community to use in our education, our advocacy, our public awareness work. Because right, the videos are just so powerful, and you can convey so much more when you're sharing through video storytelling. So thank you for being here today, everyone that joined us: Jarami, Erick, Kira, Liz, and we will see you again soon.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks so much.
Thanks.